Boris Johnson has set out his post-Brexit trade pitch to African leaders, calling for Britain to be the continent's investment partner of choice. Speaking at the first ever UK-Africa Investment Summit in central London, the Prime Minister announced an end to UK support for coal power plants overseas and signalled that change was coming to the country's immigration system. 21 African leaders, as well as businesses and entrepreneurs, attended. President Cyril Ramaphosa stayed home to focus on pressing domestic issues. Prince Harry also made an appearance in what's probably one of his last official royal engagements. Let's cross now to SABC Correspondent Hudson for more. Very good evening to you, Holly. Earlier we spoke about how there was a wooing of African countries to be the UK's trade partner of choice. Why?
Well, there's absolutely no doubt today that Boris Johnson turned on the charm. We've just heard from the UK government. They're hailing this as a new era, a momentous day, they say, that took place in central London today. But of course, there's absolutely no coincidence in the timing here because, of course, the UK is on the countdown to Brexit. In just a few days' time, the UK will leave the European Union. So Boris Johnson is very much eyeing other opportunities around the globe, other trade potentials, and he's set Africa in his sights today, laying out his pitch for more business, urging leaders across the continent to consider Britain as its most attractive suitor, really trying to woo delegates from several African nations, business leaders, entrepreneurs, the financial bosses as well, to round to a sort of post-Brexit Britain. He really did sort of tout Britain's, as he put it, achievements in terms of its higher education institutions, its technological advances, as well as its financial sector, claiming Canary Wharf was bigger than Frankfurt combined. And it really, what we saw from Boris Johnson was a real charm offensive in many ways. He even summoned Prince Harry in what will likely be one of his last official royal engagements before he steps back as a senior royal to meet with leaders on the sidelines of the summit. And there were several bilateral meetings that the Prime Minister himself held as well. He really did speak of, sort of hailed the relationship already established between the UK and African nations. He said he hopes to build on that going forward once the UK leaves the European Union. But the question is really the fact that the UK hasn't yet negotiated its future relationship with the European Union raises questions as to what really can be done before that is sealed.
Holly, we know that most of the countries that are there have very high growth rates. I just saw Rwandan President Paul Kagame there. How was that pitch by Boris Johnson received?
Well, in his sort of keynote address earlier on this morning, he came on to spoke in front of a very packed conference room in front of hundreds and many, maybe even thousands of delegates, business leaders, tycoons, all entrepreneurs were in the room. And what they first saw while we were waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive were screens which broadcast sort of big facts about how much Africa is growing, why now is the perfect time to invest in Africa. And many of those facts Boris Johnson continued to tout during his speech, notably the fact that UK and Africa trade totaled 35 billion in 2018, and the fact that 1 in 4 global consumers will be African by 2050, and if by the same year 8 of the fastest growing economies are African nations. So these were facts that really weren't lost on the Prime Minister as he sets out his sort of post-Brexit global Britain vision. So really trying to woo the nations round to his agenda there. And he really set out as well sort of his plans. He claimed that promised that change was coming in relation to the immigration system here in the UK. Of course, he wants or has proposed an Australian-style points immigration system, and he claims that that will put people before passports and so present more opportunities for people travelling from Africa here to Britain. As well as that, he also announced that there will be an end to UK aid to overseas coal power plants. Now, In relation to South Africa, of course, with the energy problems that are continuing to plague the country, that is something that may well be of particular importance. I asked Minister Pandor, who was leading the South African delegation, about that, and she said that the country is looking to transition to more renewable energy, to more green sources. So she really did welcome, actually, that announcement by Boris Johnson, and said that there are many challenges between the two countries, and particularly going forward with Brexit, that she was hoping to build on the current relationship between the UK and South Africa. So a lot of sort of talks going on behind the scenes as well, of course, to strengthen those bilateral relations between Britain and African nations. I actually saw Minister Pandor speaking with the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab as well.
SABC correspondent Holly Hudson giving us an update on that UK-Africa summit. Thanks for that this evening.